The Falcons impressed on the first day of joint practices against the Tennessee Titans, but how will it all translate when we get to the regular season?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. So all you got to do is visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. So if you do not know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong. As the humble host of this illustrious podcast, we're coming up on 9 years this Thanksgiving as the humble host of the Locked On Falcons podcast. And I think each and every one of you, whether you've been going strong with me for 9 years or 9 minutes, appreciate each and every one of you that is an everydayer of this podcast. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you have to do to become an everydayer and be put in my humble heart is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we are joined by none other than Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, who so eagerly traveled across the state of Georgia, traveled through the snow and through all this. No, I'm kidding. Because Jarvis and I were talking before we started recording about, the travel of getting to and from Flowery Branch. But of course, the reason why Jarvis was so eager to trudge through all the turmoil that he had to get there was because the Falcons and Tennessee Titans participated in day 1 of 2 days of joint practices, and we'll be picking Jarvis's brain on all the things that he observed there in this joint practice. But to sort of start things off, it seems like the general consensus, whether you talk to people that were on hand covering the Falcons or people that were on hand covering the Titans, is that the Falcons, quote unquote, won the day. Jarvis, do you think that's a fair assessment of what you saw today?
1,000%. Because here's the thing, the 9-to-5 connection was there. It was pretty consistent. There was nothing they could do with Drake London, especially when Zach Robinson put them in position to be one-on-ones. Like, that's 2 compliments. Zach Robinson is, scheming folks open, like in those matchups. It was one particular play, man. I thought it was so awesome. Robinson had motion out, and he had motion out wide, and Drake was kind of lined up, kind of like in between, and like right inside the numbers. And then so there was a linebacker on Bijan Robinson. So, hey, we got man coverage. You know what time it is, right? So as soon as they said that right before the snap, I was like, okay. I saw Michael Penix kind of, give him that kind of a look over there, snap the ball, boom, quick slant, boom. All you saw was Drake London taking off into the middle of the field. So, they just could not do anything with that secondary. I was talking to one of my guys who covers the Titans, and he was just like, that's one of their weak points is that secondary, because those guys, you got some guys that are, obviously we talk about Snead being out, but there are some guys that don't have that experience. And I think the Falcons were definitely able to take advantage of that, specifically with, Michael Penix connecting with Drake London.
Yeah. And so, Jarvis, I'm curious, looking at that connection, and, that's been a big talking point throughout training camp. I always like to point out that, yes, Michael Penix and that Drake London connection looks incredibly strong, because who else is he going to throw the football to? And again, no shots at Casey Washington or anything like that, but like Darnell Mooney's not out there.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, Darnell Mooney's not out there. And it was one of those things, you look back at that week 18 game where like Drake had like 18 targets, and it's like, yeah, because Darnell Mooney wasn't there. Like, who else you're going to force feed the football to? But I'm curious, when you look at, what you saw today in this practice, but like, how much do you put stock into that in terms of, I know one of the conversations we've had constantly is like practice versus in training camp and the preseason games, for you personally, when you're looking at this connection that Penix has to Drake London as well as others. How much of that is for you a preview of what is to come in the regular season?
I think it's a big preview because when you think about the type of target that Drake is, people like talking about how he's not able to get separation. But hey, a 50-50 ball can turn into a 75-25 ball with him, because of his size and being able to be that power forward, so to speak, out on the football field. So, and I think that, Michael Penix has a lot of confidence in his arm strength and being able to put a ball in a tight window. And guess what? If I got a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver that I know is going to go after it and try to get the rock, if it's a sketchy ball, yeah, I'm gonna try to get it to him. And I think that we saw that today. And to your point about with Casey Washington, Darnell Mooney not being out there, I feel like Casey Washington is taking full advantage of Darnell Mooney not being out there because he caught a nice post today. It was such a beautiful ball. Obviously, and all he had to do was put his arms out there. Boom. It was a perfect catch, touchdown. All you saw him, MPX kind of walking back to the huddle channel like, I told y'all. Saying like, yeah, y'all see it, and it was just really beautiful to see, when going up against another team, right? It's one thing to be going up against a guy, your teammates and everything like that. But when you're going up against another team and you're able to complete a ball like that, it is, like I said, it was a pretty thing to watch. So I think, with that, like regardless who's out there, whether it be Kyle Pitts lining up out of the X, or if Darnell Mooney's injury lingers for longer than what we expect, I feel like Michael Penix is going to find a way to get the football to Drake London.
There you go. Well, Jarvis, again, I always appreciate when you come on this podcast and you talk about the skill position players because I know that is not where your heart is, but that's what the people want. And so I always appreciate you, giving the people what they want. But let's get into the thing that I know you are much more focused on Tuesday's practice, which is that battle in the trenches, and get your takeaways on that front as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. August 26th is officially a brand new holiday. It is FanDuel Futures Day. This is the perfect holiday for all you football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on upcoming NFL season predictions. So whether you want to call your shot on who wins the MVP, or you're eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 kicks off, this is your moment. So to celebrate FanDuel Futures Day, if you're feeling bullish on the Atlanta Falcons entering 2025, it is the day for you. If you think this is the year that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson dethrone Patrick Mahomes and lead their team to the big dance, this is the day to celebrate and win some cash. So head to FanDuel.com right now or download the FanDuel app today, and you can start planning your futures bets right now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. Check it out at FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So, Jarvis, when I was talking about, this potential joint practice on yesterday's episode, I talked a bit about, wondering about the battle in the trenches because I talked a little bit about how the last time the Falcons played the Titans, they kind of got their butts kicked in the trenches, certainly in that first half of that game. And then coaches probably lit a fire under their butt and be like, we're losing this game because Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry and all those guys are kicking your all's butts. And then you started to see things change in that second half with the offense starting to get into a groove. But, because we're not going to see the starters and Raheem Morris again confirmed that, Michael Penix is not going to play this week and he certainly ain't going to play against the Cowboys. I would be shocked if Raheem Morris we're all saving Michael Penix in the starting offense for that third preseason game against the Cowboys. But he did say Kirk Cousins might play. But I say all that because
Can I speak to that?
Go ahead.
I don't think Kirk gonna play because here's the thing, dog.
Play.
That second offensive line, man. Hey, man, that it wasn't smooth because they had it separated. They had like the first team, off Titans first team offense versus kind of the semi first second team defense, and then they had the first team offense for the Falcons against like their semi first second team, kind of like rotational type situation for the Titans defense. And man, Kirk he wasn't running for his life. because he knows they can't touch him, but there were some moments where it just didn't look good from a protection standpoint. So yeah, I don't see Kirk. I'll be shocked if Kirk plays in the preseason because you got to protect that investment, baby. He got to be breaking case of emergency, man. Somebody get hurt around the league, he got to be healthy, Jack, and that's the only way they're going to even start the conversation. So I seriously doubt they put him out there and risk injury behind that offensive line.
Okay, I feel like Raheem did this last year where he was. I can't remember. He was like which quarterback it was, whether it was Kirk or Penix. It was like it's maybe after their joint practices going into it, and it's like maybe means no, right? It's like when you ask your mom for something, it's like, and she says maybe, it's like maybe is a no. It's just she's.
I'm not willing to tell you no right now.
Yeah,
I'll tell you later.
Yeah,
I'll tell you no later.
I've been asked by many a friend, "Hey, you want to hang out?" I'm like, maybe, sure, maybe. And
maybe,
it's like,
maybe, yeah.
I know 8 o'clock's gonna hit. I'm gonna be right there on that couch doing absolutely nothing, being old and washed. Okay.
Yes.
So,
maybe
but that being said, because this is really the only action we're gonna get to see this offensive line go up against somebody other than this starting offensive line go up against somebody other than the Atlanta Falcons this summer. What did your eyes see, that you could take away from today's practice?
How sometimes where they got the offensive line and defensive line, they have them like off in the cut, like they don't matter, it's the most important thing for those you don't know. I don't care about all the one-on-ones, wide receivers, DBs, man. Bump all that, man. It just means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. So, as I'm making my way over there, free, I'll have my power walk on, you know what I'm saying? Because, people want to talk and stuff. All that. I'm like, hey, man, I got something to do. Got some place to be. Y'all leave me alone. So as I'm walking down there, guess who I see? As soon as I get over there, Chris Lindstrom and Jeffrey Simmons lining up against each other. I was like, yes, perfect timing. And dude, that first play, Jeffrey Simmons, I was like, oh, okay, Chris. But guess what, though? Here's the thing about Chris Lindstrom, man. This is why I knew from day one that this dude was going to be a ball player. He never gets beat twice. Like, you can get him. You're probably going to get him if you're good. If you're really, really good. But don't try to come back with that same move. That next play, they went back to back. That next play, he tried to do that same thing or anything that remotely resembled what he tried to do with that first time. And Chris was just like, nope. Like, here we go. And then Jeff was trying to talk junk as he walking back to the huddle. Chris was like, he didn't even look his way. I was like, yeah, that's Chris Lindstrom, man. But yeah, man, those guys were going at it. It was a beautiful thing to watch, man. And I think that, when you think about, people talking about how these joint practices, they don't matter. No, they matter, especially in those moments because, hey, it's mano-a-mano. Y'all lining up. You got your doggone splits right there. Your tackle is right there. So there ain't no excuses. Oh, you lined up all out wide. That ain't going to happen in the game. Nah, right there. Line your butt up how you would line up on the field. And they went at it, man. So it was some good action. I actually got a chance to see Jack Nelson. Jack Nelson was looking pretty good against Olufemi Oladejo. I think I butchered that first name. Yeah, I butchered that first one, but I think Jack Nelson had some good sets again, some good reps again. Oladejo, yeah, killing that man name. But anyway, Jack Nelson looked pretty good in pass pro today. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Jarvis, your excuse is you haven't had to say that name since the Senior Bowl, so
yes, I have not.
You would have had a lot of reps if the Falcons had drafted him in the second round or whatever. In April, but it's just like, all right, that guy, that's his name.
Yes, there we go. I know.
Locked On Titans to get the pronunciation right, but I'm curious. Did you get to see a chance to see this Falcons defensive front get after it against this kind of revamped Titans offensive line that they've put a lot of resources in because they're trying to get that unit to respectable levels where it has not consistently been these last couple of years. So what were your thoughts when you saw the Falcons defense going up against the Titans offensive line?
That was an interesting one, man, because I think, guys like Leonard Floyd, they were able to get wins. I think I saw Taquan Graham be able to get off a little bit. I like what I saw from him. But I think overall, like fast forwarding in time and into the 11-on-11, like I think the Falcons got a lot of wins, but when they got into like the 12 personnel and you had to see James Pierce take on a double tight end set and they start running right at him, they were able to take advantage, man. Because you still got Peter Skoronski over there. That was, he was doing his thing, because we had those conversations about Skoronski, man. Like both of us, I feel, if I remember correctly, wanted him the Falcons to take a look at him as well. So when it got to that run game, that's when I started to see the Titans offensive line kind of take advantage as a group, right? Not necessarily dominate, but like you see where they probably, if it was a game and they were making adjustments, they're like, okay, all right, y'all trying to tee off in the pass game. So let's slow this thing down a little bit and see if we can start mauling and see if y'all can stop this run. And I think that the Titans were able to take advantage of that throughout practice.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic that I think we might see more of in the regular season because, if the offense lives up to its potential in terms of being this high-powered, high-scoring offense,
the Lions did it too in the second half. They started slowing it down a little bit, started running the football. So yeah.
And I don't know what your number is at this point in the training camp, Jarvis, whether we've cracked 30 points per game, but basically there's going to be a lot of teams this year. It's like, Tennessee being a great example. Obviously, They're not on the Falcons' regular season schedule, but with the rookie quarterback and with some of the question marks that they have, like they're going to be like, let's slow this game down. We can win a 20-17 game against the Falcons. I don't think we can win a 34-30 shootout against the Falcons, and that's going to cause a lot of these teams that we face this upcoming season, I think, to basically do what you saw teams do against the Falcons reasonably successfully against in 2017 and whatnot, coming off that Super Bowl year, where it's like, okay, well, we can't keep pace with this offense, so we'll force them to play our game, that sort of physical game, and that's why we focus so much on the trenches and the run defense and all that stuff. Like those are going to be things that this defense, I think, is going to get challenged at, with particularly given how much of their defense is kind of predicated on, going back to comments that Jeff Ulbrich made immediately after the draft, which is we built this defense to play with leads, right? And if they don't get those leads, not to sit here and say like, oh, it's going to be a disaster or anything like that, but that's going to be potentially a vulnerability that we're talking about, where teams, as we talked about throughout last year, if teams can have success on early downs, running the football, getting those, 4, 5, 6 yards and stay ahead of the chains, that's going to limit this pass rush from being able to pin their ears back and really get after the quarterback. Is that fair from your perspective?
Yeah, it's super fair. It's super fair. I even asked early on in training camp, I asked Terry Fontenot, who was basically right at the end of the press conference. And I asked him, I was like, hey, man, given all the youth on the defense side of the football, do you feel like this offense is going to have to carry this team? And one of the things that he said, he's like, I'll let you answer that question. I think you know the answer to that question. He said, matter of fact, why don't you ask Jeff Ulbrich about the question? I was like, I'm not going to ask him that question because I already know what he's probably going to say. He's probably going to say just what you just said. Hey, we are built to play with leads, and that's the benefit of having those long athletic guys and attacking style defense and one gap flying up, getting up into the offensive lineman and getting in their gaps and getting to the quarterback or stopping the run on the way to the quarterback, like you talked about. So yeah, man, I think that's more than fair. The more I see it, I see those runs being popped and teams lining up in that 12 personnel and saying, yeah, okay, y'all in this 3-4 and you talking about two gapping with those guys at outside linebacker. Okay, don't worry about it. We're going to line these tight ends on the same side and see if you can doggone break this double team. How about that? And get to this edge. And I think that was something that I saw today. And the more I see it, the more my number is going to have to go up. Like, I don't want it to go up because I want to stay at 28 points. 28 points a game, I think they'll be fine. But, yeah, I don't want for the Falcons to be in a situation where they're in close games because I don't think that's going to work out in their favor at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing I've told people, because I've talked to a number of people this summer about that, it's like, I don't think every team is going to have success playing that style of football against the Atlanta Falcons. But I do think there is going to be teams on their schedule. A team like Buffalo, I look at as a very prominent example of one with the, offensive line that basically everybody's like 330 pounds. And it's just like, okay, well, we got 2 tight ends and we're just going to lean on you. And that's something I saw that the Bills do successfully against that Jets defense last year. And, I think there are going to be games where teams are going to find success doing that. And it's going to be how do the Falcons respond to that? And can they play, left-handed, I guess you could say, this upcoming fall when it comes to those things. But, we know this defense is built to get after the quarterback. And from what I've heard, and we'll see, Jarvis, if you agree with this assessment, they were able to get after Cam Ward a little bit and force him into some rookie mistakes. So let's talk a little bit more about that sort of opportunistic defense that I think is going to potentially be the calling card for the Falcons this upcoming season as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Today's episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. With the NFL season upon us, it means fantasy football is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before this year. I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've been a Yahoo Fantasy for the better part of 2 decades, and the updates that they're rolling out this month are, pun intended, fantastic. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it all off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. And if you're into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy football right now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. So, Jarvis, the reports are that, Cam Ward, made maybe some rookie mistakes, threw a couple of picks. Falcons were able to get some hands on the football, get a couple of fumbles and whatnot. So I'm curious, as you were watching that, is that going to be kind of the identity of this Falcons defense as we're sort of talking about it, which is like we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be attacking, and we might give up some yards, we might give up some plays, but we'll get it back because we'll be able to create the turnover and give that ball back to the offense so that they can get to the 30 plus points or whatever. Did you see that on display in Tuesday's practice, and what other things stood out to you in this joint practice?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things we talk about, Mike Hughes punching the ball out, picking the ball up, taking it to the house. Then you have a guy like Mike Ford getting a pick because Cam Ward didn't see him. He was sitting right there. Cam Ward threw it right to him, and Mike Ford took that bad boy back to the house as well. So when you think about going back to getting those points, giving those extra possessions for your offense, because that's the money side, right? Like that's where the money is, that's where the money resides. So that's what you're going to have to lean on. So I think when you think about an attack style defense, a defense that's built to rush the passer, like if you add those forcing turnover piece to that is a marriage made in heaven, man, because like it's a reason why all you hear guys talking about, K Nellis specifically, he's talking about, hey man, the ball is my breath. That's how I breathe. That's how I live. Like I have to live, eat that ball. And that's what they've been doing, man. It's been preached. You hear guys regurgitating it, you see the actions behind it. Even Jesse Bates, they tried AJ Terrell. I don't know why they did that. He backed that bad boy down, popped it up in the air. My guy who's the Titans beat writer, he was like, man, where Jesse Bates at? He was like, I was like, hey man, he gonna be by that ball. Jesse gonna be by that ball. So as soon as he said that, ball landed right in Jesse Bates' hands and right down the sideline. So yeah, man, that's what you're talking about. Eat both sides of the ball, meaning offense and defense, complementing each other, because you can't have a team that can't rush the passer and you up here talking about going into a shootout with somebody. That is awful combination. And we saw that last year against the Panthers. It was like, why are we in the shootout with the Panthers? Because the defense can't stop a doggone nosebleed. You know what I mean? So I think when you have a team that can rush the passer, get after it, and, you know, put the quarterback on the ground, force turnovers, and you got an offense that's already averaging 28 points a game, you add another score, an extra possession, man, you're talking about teams like with a rookie quarterback that's going to be in trouble. And that's kind of what was on display today.
Now, when you look ahead to tomorrow's joint practice, I know you're not going to be in attendance, but what are some of the things that at least you'll be paying attention to, as well as potential things that fans may want to keep their eyes on that you may have seen today in practice for Friday's game against the Titans? What are some of the things that you are you know, going to put out there for this team and for the listeners to check out?
Hey, man, for all of those people out there that listen to this podcast, and I know a lot of people listen to this podcast. You got a lot of people listen to you, man. So, yo, I know they follow. You know what I'm saying? You're doing a good job, bro.
I appreciate those words.
Yes, no. You know, I know you're gonna say I know once we get out the podcast, but you can be humble now. I appreciate that. Yeah, man, Natron Brooks, keep an eye on that, man, because I feel like the more Clark Phillips is out, you know, Coach said he got a rib. Like, I don't know what that means. I got a rib too. Like, so like, what's going on? You know, what's going on with the rib? Is it cracked? Is it broke? What's going on? But, you know, the more Clark Phillips is out, the more you see that there might not be room for him to be around, you know. And, man, I know he got some time, you know, on a practice squad, so he can potentially be there. But, you know, it is hard. I feel like it's going to be hard to keep Natron Brooks off this active roster this time around, man, because the man has just been playing some ball. When you're talking about being active, being in coverage, he's not that big of a guy, and Clark Phillips isn't that big of a guy either. But when you talk about being there, right there, and to be able to make plays on the ball as well, and be a special team beast also, it's going to be hard to keep him off, man. Like, and that's why I say, man, guys who deal with those injuries and be in spaces where they aren't on the field, guys look at that as opportunity. And I feel like Natron Brooks is taking full advantage of that.
Okay. I talked about I think yesterday on the pod, where it's like one thing that we know about I guess it was 2 days ago. One thing that we know about the Atlanta Falcons, particularly the secondary, is that Natron Brooks is going to show out in the preseason. He did it last year. Yep. He did it on Friday night. And we'll see if he can continue that this Friday against the Titans. Jarvis, before we duck out of here, any other tidbits that you wanted to share with the listeners before we move on?
Coverage sacks. Saw that several times today.
Okay.
And D. Alford was out there. Mike Hughes was out there. And Eddie Terrell was out there. That was the corner that were out there. And Cam Ward simply just had nowhere to throw the football. He had nowhere to throw a football. And I think that's one of those things where if you start getting stuff on that end as well, that's when those sack numbers start to go up, right? Because they don't want to throw a pick. But if you got your guys, if you've got your secondary giving your defensive line a half a second, a full second, you know, just to get there, just to be able to finish that rush and get there and then put them on the ground. Like, those are some of the things that are going to close out drives. Those are the things going to force turnovers. And I think that, you know, we saw that today. But yeah, that was another thing that just kind of stood out to me today. Was just like, all right, he had nowhere to go with the football. And I'm like, man, it's been a while since we've been able to say stuff like that, you know. Like, oh, so the secondary is helping the defensive line, you know. Oh man, like, all right, okay. So, you know, that's the thing you like to see as well. And then one more little nugget, man. Like, I know people are focused in on what Bijan Robinson can do as far as getting the ball out of the backfield. think there was an emphasis today on getting Tyler Algier the ball out of the backfield as well. And when you get him out on the screen and get him running downhill like that, I was like, hey, man, good luck on that one, my brother. hey. That man got a
want to live to play another down. Yeah.
Hey, man, some people going to make some business decisions, Jack. I'm telling y'all, man, the fourth quarter with 25 with the ball in his hands, and he got a full length of speed without being touched at all. Yeah, you might want to watch out. So yeah, man, Zach Robinson was in his bag today, man. So that was another thing that stood out to today as well.
There you go. Yeah, man, coverage sacks. It's crazy notion. Yeah. Never heard of that. Guys.
What's that?
Playing 12 yards off the ball, and it's like,
on 3rd and 7. You know what I'm saying? Backpedaling, getting out of there.
Jimmy Lake still catching strays.
Y'all gonna get straight for your folks. I try not to be that guy. You know what I'm saying?
But
you set me up, bro. Yeah, like I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that alley every time. Every time you set me up, bro,
coverage sack, that's where my mind immediately went. I was just like, that's a novel concept. I've never heard of a coverage sack for the Atlanta Falcons.
The secondary helping out the defensive line. I mean,
what a crazy concept!
Who came up with that idea? What's that?
Wow. So, those are the things you guys have to look forward to as we continue covering the joint practices all week long. I believe tomorrow we'll be joined by Maria Martin of 11 Alive to talk about tomorrow's practice. And then, of course, we'll get you guys geared up for that Friday action against the Titans, where we will definitely be seeing Kirk Cousins and the rest of these starters. Yes. So we have that to look forward to. So make sure you continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts for your second listen. Of course, check out Locked On Bets, who are going to give you all those football futures that, this upcoming FanDuel Futures Day is going to allow you to cash in on. Locked On Bets is, of course, all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.